Everybody loves listening to stories that are interesting, compelling, and filled with humor and suspense. However, not everybody can narrate a good story. Storytelling is an art. In this lesson, we shall learn about a man named Iswaran who was an exemplary storyteller. The story is narrated by Mahendra, who was a junior supervisor with the company. He kept moving from place to place as required by his duties. He had a cook named Iswaran. Wherever Mahendra went, Iswaran followed him. Apart from good storytelling skills, Iswaran was also an expert cook. He could cook food as quickly as he could cook up his stories. So magical were the flavors in his stories and food that he was quite an asset to his master. Who makes delicious dishes at your home? Apart from cooking, what else does this person do? Have you observed his or her daily routine? Well, Iswaran too had a routine. Every day after completing his work, it was his routine to read for a while. He usually read some popular Tamil thriller. His vivid descriptions were mostly influenced by these books. While he narrated the stories, the listeners could sense the thrill in his body language too. Mahendra would stretch himself out on the canvas chair and listen to his stories without a hint of suspicion. Do you think that body language is important for effective communication? Yes, body language is the secret ingredient that boosts our communication. When we speak, 50% of its effectiveness lies in our body language. What else is important while telling a story? Indeed, a good introduction makes the story more interesting. Iswaran was a master at prologues. If he wanted to tell an anecdote about elephants, he would start with how his village was famous for elephants and how wild elephants were beyond human control. He would then unveil the story. Once he narrated a story of how a wild elephant entered the outskirts of his childhood town, petrifying the people. The elephant entered their school compound and everybody, including the teachers, was afraid. But he mustered the courage to strike the third toenail of the humongous animal with a cane that he took from one of his teachers and made the animal unconscious. A vet had to be called to revive the animal and let it go back to the jungle within 2 days. In the previous video, we saw that Iswaran was an exemplary storyteller. Let's see what happens next. Iswaran recounted stories filled with adventure, horror or suspense every day. Credible or not, Mahendra enjoyed listening to them because of the unique way in which they were told. On another day, which as per traditions was a day when people fed delicacies to ancestral spirits, Iswaran prepared a delicious dinner and was pleased to be complimented by Mahendra for his culinary skills. However, that night he came up with a rather distasteful story. He began by saying that the place they lived was once a burial ground. He added that he had seen a skull on the first day itself and even to that day had seen many skulls on the path. He even said that he had seen ghosts on some nights. Once he saw a ghostly woman with matted hair and a shriveled face with a fetus in her arms that appeared off and on during full moon nights. Mahendra, though terrified, scolded Iswaran and left the room. What do you think might have happened next? Will the ghost appear to Mahendra as well? Or was the story simply a concoction? Mahendra retired for the night with some discomfort. He had never seen a ghost in the vicinity when he would look out of his window every night. Yet after hearing the story, he decided not to look out, especially on a full moon night. One night, Mahendra woke up to a low moan. He dismissed it at first, thinking that it would be a cat chasing a mouse. When it became louder and louder, he looked out of the windowsill only to find a faint image holding a bundle. He had chills running down his body, but he reasoned that it could be a trick of his subconscious mind. The next morning, just as Mahendra was stepping out, Iswaran grinned and said,
Sir, remember the other day when I was telling you about the female ghost with the fetus in its arms? You were so angry with me for imagining things. Well, you saw her yourself last night. I came running, hearing the sound of moaning that was coming from your room.
Mahendra was so frightened to the bones that he resolved to leave the haunted place the next day. What do you think? Was it right for Mahendra not to trust his reasoning and believe Iswaran? Do you believe in such imaginary creatures?